One of the most intriguing things about mythology is the question, where did these stories come from? Did people make them up? Or is history really dotted with these incredible characters and events? Or were the stories based on things that really happened? And unless we invent time travel, we'll never know the answer, so we're left to guess. Where it gets interesting, though, is when the same story starts popping up in different places. And what's a story that Chinese mythology, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the writings of Plato, the Bible, the Hindu Satapatha Brahmana, and Cheyenne oral history all have in common? Here's a hint. It's the story of a great natural disaster and how humanity survived it. The particular natural disaster in question is, of course, the flood. Join me, Jaer Christie, as I explore the hidden legends that shape the world on the Mythographist, Myths of Mainland China. This week, we'll look at the most popular of several important flood myths in Chinese culture, the story of how the goddess Nüwa fixed the hole in the sky. Long, long ago, in the days when humans lived upon the earth but no god or ruler was yet over them, in a village by a riverside, a good monk keeps a temple, and before this temple's gate sits a large iron lion. The monk is wise. He watches the fall of his oracle bones, he feels the lines on the turtle's shells, and he sees the portent of terrible things to come. He warns each worshipper who comes to burn incense of the signs, but not even one heeds his words. Every day, a young brother and sister pause at the temple gates to play on the iron lion, climbing it like it was a mighty horse, and the monk sees them. There comes a day when he goes out to them. They bow respectfully and apologize, afraid of his rebuke, but the monk smiles. "The lion is here to protect you, my children," he says, "and it is not displeased that you show it affection. But listen well to my words, and know the signs of the world. There may come a day when this lion's eyes are red, and well you will do to heed its warning. On that day you must flee to the hills without delay. Do not look back as you run, for terrible disaster is sure to follow close behind. Do not warn your friends, for it will be too late. Only remember that the mountains shall keep you safe." The children do remember his words, and every day they make sure to check the lion's eyes. The monk, of course, only reads the omens. He does not know what will happen, nor when it shall come to pass, nor why. But he reads the signs correctly, and his warnings are true. For at this very time, Gonggong, son of the fire god Zhurong, is ascending, building strength upon strength. Like all the gods of that time, Gonggong has the body of a powerful serpent and the head of a human. He has hair as red as flame, and his dominion is all the water which courses across the face of the earth, and all the rains that fall from the clouds. Gonggong is a cruel god. He causes rivers to rise and lakes to swell so as to sweep away all who live there, only to show his power. In this way, although water gives life to man and beast alike, all living things come to fear it, and Gonggong increases in power and fame until he is the strongest god in all the earth. And as his strength grows, so does his hunger for more, until he believes that his only rightful place is that of a god who rules over all the people of the earth. "I shall be lord of every man and every woman, every elder and every child," he bellows, "and by my strength I shall rule them, for neither the worlds above nor those below can be controlled without a fist of iron." This god of the waters may appear full of bluster, but he is no stranger to war. As he declares his intentions, Gonggong orders his minister, Xiangliu, the black snake with 9 heads, to unleash floods upon the world of humans. The waters rise fierce and fast across all the lands, and wherever Xiangliu passes, the lands turn to bitter swamp and poisonous marsh. Now, in the village upon the earth below, a certain butcher has noticed the young brother and sister, and how much they love to play with the iron lion. This butcher is not a bad man, but perhaps there are those who would call his humor foul. On this, the day of Gonggong's declaration, it so happens that the butcher decides to play a joke on the brother and sister. So he takes some blood from his shop, and he paints red the eyes of the lion. The butcher does not know the words of the monk, of course, neither would he care. But an omen is an omen, and the heavens and the earth align in ways that none can hope to understand. When they see that the lion's eyes are red, the brother and sister gasp. They remember the kind monk's words, and they run from the village as fast as they can. Into the hills they climb, and they do not look back until they reach the caves at the top of the tallest mountain. Of course, the butcher is watching, and he and the townspeople laugh as the children run so fast. But they soon forget their laughter as the river rises up, sudden and hungry like a dragon, and swallows the whole village. All across the lands, lakes spill out of their bounds, streams thrash and rage, and rains pour down from the heavens until waters blanket everything. Gonggong is not the only god who thinks himself fit to rule over the human race, however. Zhuanxu, god of the north, whose works are harsh yet just, has worked for many years to be a better ruler, and he believes that Gonggong's ways will lead only to ruin. So Zhuanxu descends from the peaks of heavenly Kunlun Mountain in pursuit of Gonggong, and to claim lordship for himself. Their battle rages across the corners of the wilderness, and long does God clash against God. Nüwa, the great goddess who has so recently crafted humans from clay, knows nothing of this feud, but she looks down in pity on her creations as they cry out in fear and perish in the floods. First, she tries to stop the waters, but their rise will not be halted, and she is perplexed. Next, she tries to calm the waters, but their crashing will not be stilled, and she is troubled, for what water dare deny her will? Then she sees the 9 heads of the black snake Xiangliu, and the ruin that follows in his wake, and her anger burns bright, for she knows that he is in league with Gonggong. Nüwa sets off after him, and her power is a fearsome thing to behold. Near and far, wherever people have settled, Gonggong's waters cover towns and cities. The rains beat down on the fields and rush down the hills. They carry away soil and trees in a fury of destruction. The brother and sister watch in horror from their cave at the top of the mountain. The rain falls for a long time. It does not relent, and the waters rise, and soon the boy and the girl wonder if they are safe even here. Gonggong's power is great. It is not without cause that he believes himself worthy of rule. For all the waters of the earth bow to his will, and his very breath shakes trees from their roots. A worthy foe he is, even for great and mighty Zhuanxu. But such young and reckless power lasts only for a short time. Just as the powers of the earth pale before the might of the heavens, so too ancient Zhuanxu soon begins to wear at the water god's strength. Their battle has taken them far and away from traveled places, even to the northwestern lands beyond the dividing sea. Here stands a mountain called Buzhou, which means not full, and it is one of the pillars that holds up the sky. When Gonggong sees that he cannot defeat Zhuanxu, he seethes with rage and hurls himself at Mount Buzhou. His head strikes with such force that the mountain itself splits. The top of Mount Buzhou tumbles away from the heavens, and as it falls, it tears a great hole in the sky, and all that is beyond begins to pour through the hole. Brash and full of pride Gonggong may be, but for all that, he is still no fool. When his strength is spent and the sky rent, he says to himself, "If I throw down my weapons now, I will not throw away my life." And so this he does. Zhuanxu accepts the surrender, and he speaks heaven's sentence to Gonggong. The Jade Emperor of Heaven will not dignify your destruction against those you claimed yourself fit to rule with an honorable death. Your arrogance brings you only shame, he decrees. For your punishment, you are banished to where you may do no more harm. The barren north shall be your home, far from the heavens and far from the lands where people dwell." So Gonggong leaves, and from this time forward he lives on the plateau to the north, which we now call the Terrace of Gonggong. In the lands of men and women, though, the waters rise higher still, and even on the mountaintop, the brother and the sister are afraid. They can see the hole in the sky, and the destruction that bursts forth from it is terrible to behold. They know that they will not live to see another sunrise. But Nüwa is not blind to the plight of her children. Through sheets of rain and cascades of the rivers, she pursues Xianglu until at last she catches him and strikes him down, severing one of his 9 heads after the other. And when she finally kills him with a mighty blow, the rains and rivers and waves cease their turmoil, and at last begin to return to their appointed places. The hole in the sky remains, though. The magic of heaven has poured through, and strange and ferocious creatures are emboldened by the imbalance. Fires rage and cannot be extinguished, and still the waters ravage the lands. Nüwa sets to work at once. First, she seeks far and wide, and finds 5 magical stones, each a jewel of a different color. She makes a fire so hot that only she can control it, and Nüwa holds the 5 colorful stones in the fire until they are soft and malleable. One by one, Nüwa presses the stones so they are as flat as pancakes. Once the task is finished, she flies up to the hole in the middle of the sky. With the stones she seals up the damage, and the sky is made whole once more. This is why, when we look at the sky at twilight, we see colorful clouds in the sky. It is the setting sun shining through these magical stones. Since Mount Buzhou, one of the pillars of the heavens, has been destroyed by Gonggong's head, the sky is tilted down. What can keep the heavens from sliding down onto the earth? Nüwa knows all the beasts of the earth and the ways they tread, and she knows of a giant gui, a great and magical tortoise named Ao, who is so large that he is said to bear islands across the oceans. Nüwa scours the wilderness in search of him, and when she finally finds the mighty beast, she cuts off all 4 of his enormous legs. The back legs she uses to prop up the western corners of the sky, near Mount Buzhou. On the eastern horizon she sets its shorter front legs. It is for this reason that, even to this day, the earth leans toward the southeast as it spins. But what of humankind? Only a few men and women had survived Gonggong's flood, and these were swiftly killed by the new terrors that stalked the lands. Out of all of humanity, only the brother and the sister, in their high mountain cave, remain alive. They have waited out the flood and the disasters that came after. Now they look out from their cave and see that they alone of all mankind remain. How terrible it would be for them to be the last man and woman, and for humankind to end with their deaths. But still they know they cannot be married, for they are brother and sister, and such a thing would be shameful under heaven. So they seek the counsel of Nüwa, since it was she who gave them life in the first place. They stand on opposite sides of the mountain, the brother on the east side and the sister on the west, and they pray, "We alone of your children remain upon the earth, but we fear to break the sacred laws of family. If we are to be married, to bring people again to the earth, may the stones we throw lie together at the bottom of the mountain." And they each cast a large stone down their side of the mountain. However, when the sister follows her stone, she finds her brother following his stone to exactly the same place, so the 2 stones lie side by side at the mountain's foot. They doubt this sign, of course, and so they go to 2 different mountaintops and pray again. "We would follow the will of the heavens," they say, "and we do not wish the wrath of the gods to fall upon us. If we are to be married, let the smoke from our fires mingle." And each, upon a different mountain, far from the other, starts a campfire. As the smoke rises from the fires, it comes together over the valley between them. The brother and sister know the strength of omens, but they are not blind to coincidence either, or the laws they have learned. So, lest they have met with chance once more, again they pray to heaven. There are no others to obey the commands of the heavens, and if we do not, we fear what may happen. If we are to be married, let the thread cast from one mountain be threaded through the eye of a needle on the other. And the sister stands atop one mountain, and she holds a needle in her hand. Her brother climbs another mountain, carrying a single piece of string, and from the mountain top he casts the thread. They meet in the valley, and the sister holds the needle with the string through its eye, so they know that it is the will of the heavens that they should be married. Even so, they are embarrassed, so the sister makes a fan from grass and holds it before her face, though there is nobody else to see them. When they are older and grown, and the time is come for them to have a child, the sister gives birth to a strange thing. It is a large ball of flesh, with no features that they can see. They are troubled by this, as anyone would be, and they say, "This is the punishment of the heavens for what we have done, despite the signs we should not have been married." But Nüwa hears their troubles and goes down to them. She takes the ball of flesh and cuts it into 100 pieces, and then to the wind scatters those 100 pieces of flesh. One piece touches a plum tree, and another lands on fallen wood, one lands near a peach orchard, and another in a field of flowers. Each piece becomes a full human being, and each new person takes the surname of the thing he or she is closest to. This is why there are so many family names, though we are all descended from the same brother and sister. So, in this way, the natural balance of things was restored by the labor of those both in the heavens and on the earth. Even so, the world is full of reminders of these events so long ago. Because of Gonggong's terrible ambition, our globe tilts and the seasons change. Because of the sundering of Mount Buzhou, the heavens were split from the earth, and none can cross between them. Because of the hole rent in the sky and the stones that Nüwa used to repair it, we still see a colorful sky in the western twilight. And although all humans may look different and live in far-flung places, still we are all brothers and sisters of the same family. This story is actually 3 stories. Gonggong fights Zhuanxu, Nüwa fixes the hole in the sky, and brother and sister survive a flood. Gonggong and Nüwa's stories are often put together anyway, and it wasn't much of a stretch to include the third, as they all seem to deal with the same mythical flood event. This was well received by the Chinese people I showed it to, so I went with it. This Nüwa myth accounts for the origin of several natural phenomena, and is one of the 5 best-known and most important Chinese folktales. As far as flood myths go, you might notice that, unlike many other similar stories from different cultures, it doesn't involve an actual boat, but it does have a very small number of people receiving a divine warning to hide themselves away in a specific place. So, do with that information what you will. The brother and sister story has a lot of overlap with Fuxi and Nüwa making people. I cut out some of those differences in the Fuxi and Nüwa myth because they show up here again. In fact, in some versions of the repopulation myth, the brother and sister hiding from the flood are actually Nüwa and Fuxi, and they go through a similar series of trials before getting married. Getting surnames by the trees you're close to is also something in the human creation myth, and the examples I use here are some of the most common modern Chinese surnames. Li means plum, Tao, peach, Mu, wood, and Hua, flower. In other versions of the repopulation myth, the brother tricks the sister into marrying him, but that seemed to me like something better left for the notes than for the story itself. A few more notes. The names of Ao, the giant tortoise, or Gui, whose legs now hold up the sky, and Xiangliu, the great snake who turns everything to poisonous swamplands, are lesser-known parts of this legend. Most people know the characters, but they don't identify them by name here. Zhurong is listed here as Gonggong's grandfather, and Zhuanxu is Gonggong's opponent, but they seem to be almost interchangeable throughout Chinese mythology. In any given version of the story, either one might be Gonggong's opponent, but neither one has a huge role in any of the other stories I came across. To be honest, when I started this project, I really tried to figure out the genealogies here, and if you want to dive into it, be my guest. This flood is, by definition, of course, a prehistoric event, and in the timeline of Chinese mythology, at this time, the gods were still actively involved in the affairs of mankind. But Gonggong's grandfather is said to be either the Emperor Yandi or the Emperor Huangdi, who each played a key role in the foundation of what would eventually become the Chinese nation. Zhuanxu is also said to be a descendant of Huangdi, so that puts the flood well after the other things that would happen here. At least as far back as 100 BCE, Han Dynasty scholars were rationalizing these legends, trying to figure out how their myths fit in with real history, and some changes to the recorded versions of these stories may definitely have occurred at that time. What's most likely is that actual events and individuals were vaguely remembered, then later ascribed mythologized significance, and uncoupled from a concrete timeline. Another possibility, of course, is that multiple people had the same name and eventually became conflated as one. But, all that said, most people who know this story don't care about any of this, so I'll leave it at that. One more note about the background: the iron lion that the monk is supposed to have used can't have been a part of this story. Lions weren't introduced to China until at least centuries later, so this is good evidence that this part of the story was added in later. A few pop culture notes as well. The 2020 video game, Immortals: Fenyx Rising, featured an entire expansion, Myths of the Eastern Realm, which is based on this myth, the Hole in the Sky. The characters aren't exactly the same, but it follows this same series of events. The 2023 game, Wolong: Fallen Dynasty, also has items called Crown of Zhurong and Crown of Gonggong. There's a dwarf planet named Gonggong outside Neptune's orbit. It's similar in size to Pluto's moon, Charon, and was discovered in 2007. And, last but certainly not least, in 2021, China landed a robotic rover on Mars named Zhuanxu after the fire god. A fitting name for a visitor to the Red Planet. Thanks for listening. This episode of The Mythographist was written, narrated, and produced by me, Jaer Christie, with research by myself and Elena Tung, and music by Xiaoqing Luna Li and the China National Orchestra. If you liked this episode, stick around, because there's lots more where this came from. Subscribe to get updated automatically when The Mythographist updates, and be sure to check out the rest of the episodes on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Finally, if you know a different version of this legend, or if there's a story that you grew up with that has shaped the way you see the world, I'd love to hear it. There are so many stories out there, and the more of them we hear, the more we'll understand each other. Remember, we can't learn if we don't listen. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time on The Mythographist.